how the greatest dwarven kingdom of Khazad-dûm fell and turned into Moria, and who awakened the fiery terror deep within its halls. All that and more in today's video. The vast city-state of Khazad-dûm was founded in the Misty Mountains by the first awakened dwarf, King Durin the First. Its sprawling network of tunnels included deep mines and grand halls connected by long passages. For many years, Khazad-dûm was inhabited by the dwarves of Durin's line, which included well-known figures such as Thorin Oakenshield, his cousin Dine Ironfoot, who would later become king under the mountain, and many of their kin. Originally, Durin awakened beneath Mount Gundabad in the northern Misty Mountains, a place that became the ancestral home of the dwarves. However, Gundabad itself fell into the hands of orcs for a long time. Traveling south, Durin came upon a high mountain lake where he saw the reflection of the stars above, forming a crown above his head. Seeing this as a divine sign, Durin named the lake Miramir, or Kheled Zaram, and it remained a sacred site for the dwarves. It was at this very place that the kingdom of Khazad-dûm was founded, meaning Dwarves' Mansion in their tongue. It was also known as Dwarodelf or Hadhodrand. Here, Durin established the Longbeards clan, the eldest of the 7 dwarven houses. The vast halls of Khazad-dûm stretched beneath 3 mighty mountains of the Misty Range and extended nearly 60 kilometers. From the mountain's base up to the Silvertine Peak, known in Khuz-dûl as Zirak Zagil, rose the Endless Stair. At the summit, Durin built his tower. The first hall was situated high above ground and had windows letting in the light. The second hall was equally grand, supported by towering columns shaped like massive stone trees. Connecting the first and second halls was the narrow bridge of Khazad-dûm. If you wonder why the bridge was so thin and without rails, the answer is simple. It was a defensive measure. Should an enemy attack, they would be forced to cross a single narrow line above a yawning abyss, a place where many well-known characters later met their fate. In the depths of that chasm dwelled creatures older than the world itself, their origins unknown. Perhaps only Gandalf glimpsed them while pursuing his foe up the Endless Stair. The main city of Khazad-dûm was filled with halls and passages, with rivers running through it. The dwarves ingeniously used light shafts, a system of focusing crystals and mirrors to channel sunlight deep into their realm. The eastern gate and the smaller western door, known as Durin's Door, served as its main entrances. The latter was crafted by the master dwarf Narvi, a friend of Celebrimbor. The elven lord inscribed a design with Ithilden, a substance visible only by the light of the moon. The inscription was written in Elvish and bore a simple but significant message. "Speak, friend, and enter," such were the welcoming words inscribed on Durin's door. Meanwhile, the massive eastern gates greeted travelers with warnings written in all the major tongues, roughly meaning this: if you're not invited, turn back while you still can. Only those granted passage by the Lord of Moria could pass through them. Despite their initial friendliness, the eastern gates were ultimately destroyed during the wars between dwarves and orcs in the Third Age. Moria itself was immensely rich in iron, copper, gold, and silver. But its greatest treasure was mithril, the true silver, a metal unmatched in strength and malleability. In all of Middle-earth, mithril could only be found in Moria. It was here that King Durin the First, known as Durin the Deathless, ruled. As the first awakened dwarf, Durin lived for over 2,000 years, while other dwarves barely reached 3 centuries. Later, 5 of his descendants and heirs bore his name, as they greatly resembled their forefather. The dwarves believed them to be true reincarnations of Durin the Deathless, for it was a common belief among dwarves that ancestors could be reborn in their kin. At the beginning of the Second Age, many dwarves came to Moria from the ruined lands of Beleriand, fleeing the destruction of the War of Wrath and the sinking of the western cities Nogrod and Belagost in the Blue Mountains. The dwarves of Khazad-dûm traded with the nearby elven kingdom of Eregion, home to the master craftsman Celebrimbor, who, according to most versions, was a descendant of Feanor and creator of the Rings of Power. Their friendship was the strongest bond ever forged between elves and dwarves, benefiting both peoples immensely. Thanks to the dwarves, Eregion grew stronger, while Khazad-dûm became even more beautiful with elven influence. However, this golden age ended when Sauron forged the One Ring, destroyed Eregion, and slaughtered many elves. As Sauron waged war across the west and marched his armies into Eriador, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm struck at Mordor's rear guard, possibly saving Rivendell from destruction. Yet when Sauron counterattacked, the dwarves and the elves of Lothlorien were forced to retreat, and the gates of Khazad-dûm were shut. Many elves from the fallen Eregion fled through Khazad-dûm into Lothlorien. From that time onward, for many centuries, Moria remained closed to the outside world. Still, the Longbeards stood with the forces of good during the War of the Last Alliance, fighting against Sauron alongside elves and men. In the year 1980 of the Third Age, after exhausting the easier-to-reach mithril veins, the dwarves dug too deep and awakened a terrible ancient evil. They called it Durin's Bane, for it slew King Durin VI that very year and his son Nain Thaerur soon after. The fiery horror of Moria was revealed to be a Balrog, one of the fearsome demons once commanded by the Dark Lord Morgoth. By the way, there's a full video about Balrogs on this channel. The dwarves could do nothing against this ancient terror and were forced to abandon the great halls of Khazad-dûm, fleeing for their lives. From then on, the once proud city-state became known as Moria, the Black Pit. Travelers avoided it at all costs, and soon after, Sauron sent orcs and trolls to infest its vast, abandoned corridors. The dwarves who fled from Moria met with many different fates. Some founded kingdoms in Erebor and the Iron Hills, others joined the surviving settlements in the Blue Mountains, and some lived in small communities among other peoples, earning their keep through craftsmanship. But they never forgot their lost home. The main heir to Khazad-dûm's legacy was Erebor. Yet even there, tragedy struck again when Smaug the Golden, the fiery beast of Morgoth, descended and drove the dwarves out. After his exile, King Thror journeyed back to Moria, entered through the gates, and was slain by the orc chieftain Azog, who then defiled the dwarf's body. No one knows exactly what drove Thror to take such a desperate path. It may have been the madness brought on by one of the 7 rings he possessed, or simply the despair of a wandering king. Perhaps both. But after Thror's death, the dwarves were enraged beyond reason. They could not forgive such an insult. Thus began the War of the Dwarves and Orcs, culminating in the bloody Battle of Azanul Bazaar. Thorin fought there alongside his brother Frerin, who fell in battle, and Balin, son of Fundin, who also lost his father that day. Dain Ironfoot fought as well, avenging his fallen father Nine by slaying Azog. Unlike the movie adaptation by Peter Jackson, here Dain actually killed Azog. The dwarves won the battle, but their losses were so heavy that they could not reclaim and hold Moria. Many years later, after Erebor was reclaimed, Balin, himself a descendant of Durin, set out on a mission to retake Moria. He gathered an expedition including Owen Ori and many other dwarves. Upon reaching Moria, they overthrew the orcish sentries at the gates and settled in the chamber of Mazarbul. Balin took the title Lord of Moria, but the dwarves ruled there for only 5 short years. One day, Balin visited the sacred Miramir, and it was there that he was shot by an orc. He was buried in Mazarbul, and soon after, orc forces overwhelmed the halls. The dwarves fought to escape but were all eventually slain, aided by the Watcher in the Water lurking near Durin's gate. Thus, the orcs once again claimed dominion over the Black Pit. Some decades later, the Fellowship of the Ring passed through Moria, accidentally leaving behind one very important wizard. That wizard was Gandalf, one of the Astari, a Maya spirit created by the One before the beginning of time, bound into the body of an old man. There, the old wizard faced off against his ancient counterpart, a fellow Maya who had long ago fallen under the influence of Morgoth and lost all sanity, the Balrog of Moria. Gandalf seized the demon by the horns and dragged it from the depths of the abyss to the peak above, finally casting it down onto the stones far below. We all know that story, and if not, there are full videos on the channel about Gandalf and the Balrogs, linked in the description. In the end, the fiery terror that had once fled from the War of Wrath and hidden itself in Khazad-dûm paid the ultimate price. After the War of the Ring, the remaining forces of darkness in Middle-earth were defeated. Sauron's tyranny was broken, and in the Fourth Age, Moria was finally restored by Durin VII, the last reincarnation of Durin the Deathless. And that's the story of the rise, fall, and rebirth of the greatest Dwarven kingdom.